James Blake, James Blake, James Blake, James.
Chugga 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 chugga. Toot toot. Chugga 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 chugga. Toot toot. Chugga 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 chugga. Toot toot. Hey everybody, all aboard the hype train. Our destination today is the new James Blake LP. James Blake, because he's not just a man, he's also an album. Ooh, what if I came out with an album called Anthony Fantano? What if somebody else beat me to it? So Mr. Blake is a UK electronic music producer who came out with a string of EPs last year that got him a lot of buzz, and I didn't review them because I was busy reviewing other stuff, doing laundry. So I've played this LP again and again and again, and believe me, it's not that hard, it's just 38 minutes. And I think I can say easily that this is the perfect winter album. It's chilly, but still displays a lot of warmth and humanity, like Frosty the Snowman. On a more serious note, this thing is more like staring at an ice sculpture, a beautifully crafted ice sculpture. But what is it an ice sculpture of? I'm not sure. It's most definitely not a swan. And this may be an issue that some people have with this album, that it doesn't really take a definite shape or form. But that hasn't necessarily ruined my enjoyment of it. As I was listening to this thing again and again and again, one of my favorite albums, the thought of it just kept recurring in my head. Laurie Anderson's Big Science. And I'm not going as far as to say Blake is a huge fan of that album or even hugely inspired by it, but most definitely the vocoder vocals, the linear song structures, the swelling electronics, the abstract lyrics, all of it kind of had me thinking, oh, Superman, in the back of my head a lot of the time. And as many of you already know, Blake steps up to the microphone on this album, surprises a lot of fans, and sings on pretty much this entire LP, even going as far as to sing backup for himself on many of these tracks. And to me his voice kind of sounds like a cross between Bon Iver and Antony and the Johnsons. I'm comparing this to a lot of heady musicians out there, but I don't want to make this thing seem like a science experiment, because it's not. Actually, one of my favorite things about this album is how amazingly Blake balances procedure and emotion. The track Wilhelms Scream is a perfect example. I love the lyrics there. They're kind of vague but tell a very relatable story about James kind of being unsure about his love and his dreams. And it sounds like he's just ready to give up everything because of that. And when he says, might as well fall in, it's like he's just given up on life. He's over, he's done. And as the production builds into this fuzzy, blurry wall of sound, it's like you're falling with him. Or at least that's kind of the feeling that I got. Now, aside from the emotion and the experimentation, there's one more thing that I really liked about this album, and it's that it kept me guessing pretty much the whole time. As I was listening to a track, every expectation I had for the next track was totally foiled. And it was even difficult to predict where a certain song was going. I like that element of surprise. This thing has lush moments, bleak moments, piano ballads, short tracks, long tracks, some conventional and others less so, some finger-picked guitar, and a Feist cover. This thing pulls a lot of punches, though it does it quietly. However, this kind of comes at a price, because like I said earlier, this album for me is a little formless, and as I kind of dive into this album over and over and just try to make sense of it, it only ends up becoming this bunch of pretty sounds organized with a philosophy I don't really understand quite yet. And as long as we're griping, some of the songs here to me don't really feel like songs per se. More like motifs, rough ideas, meditations, though very well produced. James Blake obviously is not one for the traditional style of song structuring. That's okay. But considering all of the talent showcased here between the vocals, the melody writing, the beat writing, and the production, some of these tracks are criminally short. Plus, I think some of the background singing, especially when you throw all that auto-tune in there, it gets a little messy, tangled, unintelligible. So I've pretty much described the album as best as I can. If that doesn't sound like your cup of tea, I would just say, mosey on, go on to the next album, try the next thing. Don't let the fans or the people who will praise this album to death tell you that, oh, you just don't get it. It's It's bullshit. There are most definitely some memorable and amazing tracks here that are going to be on my year-end list for 2011. But there were also a handful of underwhelming moments that stopped me just short of falling deeply, deeply in love with this thing. So I'm feeling like a strong 7 to a light 8 on it. It's really enjoyable and filled with pretty sounds, for sure. So what do y'all think of this? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Why? And what do you think I should review next? But seriously, what do you think of this thing? Anthony Fantano, James Blake, forever.